All right, everybody. Stocks by the numbers. Welcome back. Today is Friday. We got about an hour to go before the close. And I know we looked at this stock really not too long ago, about a week and a half ago, but a couple of things came out. Nothing too crazy, but I know people were looking for updates, and I know the stock's swinging. As you see, it's down a chunk today. So I figured I'd just take another quick look for you guys. Name of the company, SoundHound AI Incorporated. Ticker symbol SOUN, listed here on the NASDAQ. Stock right now just a touch over $6 a share. Hit 584 today, as you see, down 64 cents, almost 10% here on the day. Market's starting to pull back here. NASDAQ actually just went back green a little bit, but we were pretty much red most of the day across the board. But SoundHound, again, I just want to remind everyone, this stock went from 2 and change to north of $10 a share, as you see here. Hit a new 52-week high of 10 and a quarter, right on the dot. So that's why, people will post these articles like, oh, this insider just sold some shares. Like, oh, is that a bad thing? Should I sell? It's like, first of all, in my opinion, no, right? I don't view it as a red flag. I don't view it as a negative. And also on the flip side as well, there are a lot of people that I'm speaking to in the comments, in the Discord. Again, Discord link in the description of every video. If you guys want to come in, it's free to join for the time being. No, I'm just kidding. It's free to join. But people forget, the stock just went from 2 to 10, And even a lot of you in the comments and the Discord are like, oh, I got in at this price, I sold at this price, I just made, 230% or whatever. So if you're inclined to sell after a massive move of several hundred percentage points, then you can't exactly knock the insiders for doing so as well. Because I can guarantee if I had shares or stock options on a company like this, and then all of a sudden we went from 2 to 10, yeah, I might look for a quick little payday for myself, So that's why, again, I understand people are trying to bring it down, citing insider selling. But in my opinion, I really wouldn't view that as a big red flag. But here, what I wanted to show you is this support trend line here, going from the bottom of this candle here, Feb 1524, to Feb 21st, just kind of going along the bottom there. You can see that we popped here, we kind of leveled out, and then we broke up higher, and then we started to come down a little bit. So we were kind of forming this big triangle here. And last time I did the update, I think it was like around here, and I said that, in my opinion, it may reject here off of this top resistance trend line. And then I was just pointing out like a couple of other trend lines and points and key levels, in my opinion, to watch, just to kind of show you where we could go. And obviously the stock had different plans, and it ended up breaking up, going up to $10 a share. And then you can see it started to like even out. It looked like it really tried to hold like that $7.5, $8 mark, and then recently chunked down. But I'm showing you here this support trend line here going across the bottoms since that initial pop, again going back about 5 weeks ago. From that initial pop up into the 3+ range, you can see, drawing across that support trend line, you can see that it has today dropped down below it. And it looked like, let's check the daily here, it looked like, so yeah, see, right at the open, it was below the trend line, and then it instantly wanted to reclaim it and get back above it. And then you can see it drops down and it tests right there, and even tries to reclaim it after it breaks again, and even tries to retest it there again, and almost retest it there again, but it ends up rejecting. But in my opinion, having it bounce off of this trend line as well could be a decent sign, but since then, it's basically stayed in between these trend lines. So let me back that out for you again. And we can see, wait, what was I looking at? 1 month, yeah, 1 month. But we can see here again, this was the support level. We broke, and now you can see this was the top line resistance now that it initially broke above, where I thought it would reject. This is connecting the tops of February 27th to February 29th, coming across those candles there. And you can see that that is now the support trend line that the stock has bounced off of earlier today. Less than an hour to go before the close. Anything can happen. But right now, in my opinion, after dropping below this bottom support trend line coming up, I have a feeling that we may break this old resistance line, and we may come back down here to this purple line. And then we had the triangle, inside of the triangle that I pointed out last time, and you can see drawing that top trend line, extending it across, you can see now it could be slightly below this purple trend line. So that's why I'm saying, like, right now, this will go Monday. This is looking like what? Maybe like 583, maybe around that level. So we could potentially break there and then come down to the purple trend line, which, as you see, maybe like 545 to like 543. And we could potentially break that level, and then it could try to bounce off of this trend line coming across. As you see, that's looking like low fives, 518, right? 512. And then if it breaks that, then we could potentially see this level here of about $3.99, $4. That was the old resistance that it was fighting. It was trying to break through that key $4 level. Looked like it formed the looked like it formed the ascending triangle. Then it happened to break down, but this is a key level right here, in my opinion, around that $4 level. And then, of course, there's this trend line, and then, of course, there's the potential gap fill as well, back to 242. So is it going to go back to 242? In my opinion, I have no idea. But I will say that, again, this support trend line, that it was up from the time that all of this started happening, it is now below it. So in my opinion, it has a very good chance to break sub 6 below this trend line, and then again come back down there, and then maybe try to bounce off of there, but potentially break there, and then you could see there at around $4. So that's why I'm saying, in my opinion, I mean, I'm not necessarily saying here at $6 you'd be crazy to, buy shares or step back in or start to build a position. I'm not saying that, but again, I'm just trying to point out a couple of levels and a couple of lines, in my opinion, that you guys should be watching. And my main point is, if you go all in today here on this big dip at 6, and then it happens to break these trend lines and it starts heading back down to 4, obviously you can't say you weren't warned, right? I try to show you guys where we could go, both positively and negatively. So, of course, on the positive side as well, I mean, it could immediately jump back up to 6.5 to try to retest this trend line and then get back above it. And then all of a sudden, right, this was just like a flash crash below it for a day or two, and now we're back up here and we're bullish again. So, unfortunately, only time will tell, but I had a feeling, again, that I originally predicted that it might reject here and come down to the apex of the triangles and then break the trend lines and come back down to 4. But again, it ran from about 7 up to 10 plus. So now that the rally continued and the sell-off was delayed, but now the sell-off is happening and coming to fruition, this is why I'm saying, in my opinion, I do think we may see 4 again. And I think that if we start to approach like this bottom trend line here, you can see again, like maybe like 520, the low 5 teens. In my opinion, that would be the time to strike. And then, of course, if it does happen to drop back down to 4, like we always say, if we liked it at 5, we're going to love it at 4, right? And then you have the trend line down here, maybe around 3.25. Boom, you can add to your position again if you have liquidity on hand, in my opinion. So I do still believe in the company long term. And even though, again, they want to try to beat up the stock here for the insider selling, in my personal opinion, I wouldn't view it as a big red flag. And I also don't know if it would deter the long-term personal outlook that I have on the stock, just because it's starting to chunk down and, some board members took profits. I really don't view that as a big negative, in my opinion. But again, we only looked at the stock about 9 or 10 days ago. So not much really has happened, but we'll look at a couple of articles here. We had a couple of price target changes, but we can see SoundHound said Friday its voice assistant with integrated ChatGPT will be available on Stellantis' DS automobiles in Japan starting March. SoundHound Chat AI has been designed to allow vehicle occupants to use hands-free voice control and uses technology that cuts down the risk of misleading and unpredictable responses often associated with some large language models. DS Automobiles became the first automaker to go into full production with SoundHound Chat AI at the beginning of March, naming the voice assistant Iris. Also, so yeah, in my opinion, that's a good sign, right? And this is what we were saying when we initially looked at the stock, and I don't remember like what their first, their first 1 or 2 fast food clients were. I don't remember, but we saw them going into the fast food business, the restaurant business, the drive-through business, right? And we said it may only be a matter of time before they start expanding this technology into all different sectors across the board. And now you can see they're in restaurants, they're in drive-thrus, and now they're in automobiles. And there was also an article talking about the AI healthcare sector and how many billions that's going to potentially generate over like the next 5-6 years. So that's what I mean. We started with restaurants, now we're in automobiles, now we're potentially moving into the healthcare sector maybe. So that's why I was saying, in my opinion, it was probably only a matter of time before they would consistently sign new clients, work with new companies, get new licensing deals and whatnot. And obviously the sky was going to be the limit, which is why I personally was updating the stock about every 3 or 4 weeks for, I don't know, the last 10 months or something that we've been looking at it. Because again, in my mind, I didn't want to mislead anyone, but in my mind, it almost seemed like a guarantee that you were going to make some nice returns with SOUN shares, especially all the way back there at the low twos and sub 2. But as we see here, CEO sold 48,837 shares in SoundHound for $408,000. Has control over 1.169 million shares. So if you own that many shares, again, and the stock just went from 2 to 10, you know, to sell 48,000 shares for $400,000, in my opinion, I really don't view it as a red flag. There was another insider supposedly that sold, and it seemed like a bigger chunk than that. But again, even if I worked at the company, you know, I really don't know if anyone would really be able to beat me up behind closed doors for taking profits on a stock that just ran, you know, 300-400% for us. Right, we had the Cantor Fitzgerald. SoundHound AI cut to underweight from overweight by Cantor Fitzgerald. So we didn't even go to equal weight. We just went straight from overweight to underweight. And that honestly surprised me a little bit. And Cantor Fitzgerald also lowered their price target from 580, which in my opinion is probably like fair value for the stock here, especially after all this news came out. But they cut the price target from 580 down to 490 a share. Downgrades SoundHound to sell from overweight. I don't know. Like I said, I equal weight, you know, downgrading it to equal weight, adjusting the price target a little bit, understandable. To completely just crash through those ratings and just put out a sell rating now, in my opinion, really doesn't make any sense. But for all we know, they might be bringing it down for someone else, right? But let's not go down the conspiracy road. Who knows? But as you see, again, article like this, global AI healthcare market size estimated to reach $148.4 billion by 2029. And obviously, it really talks about this, but I'm not going to read through this whole article because, in my opinion, I just don't think it's necessary. But that's just me. Anything else? Anything else? Yeah, I love that it's a Wall Street bet stock now, randomly. Yes, the NVIDIA, right. So, again, working with these automobiles and these voice AI assistants, we can see now that they're also working with NVIDIA here. SoundHound said Monday that it has launched, again, there's an article from March 19th. SoundHound said Monday it has launched an in-vehicle voice assistant that uses a generative AI large language model while running on the NVIDIA Drive platform. The SoundHound Chat AI voice assistant can function without internet or cloud connectivity. That's pretty impressive. And obviously could come in very handy if for any reason you don't have a connection. You can still get assistance, in my opinion. I think that's pretty cool. The voice assistant can access the motor vehicle's manual and provide safety and vehicle maintenance information, as well as answer questions about routing. So, sounds handy. Terms of the partnership were not disclosed. However, I know that it was recently announced, maybe a couple weeks ago, that they were supposedly working with like a large chip company, and people were speculating that it's NVIDIA, right? And now you're starting to hear these stories like, oh yeah, we're working together and we got this, you know, voice AI assistant in the automobiles now. So that's why, again, I'm saying, in my opinion, from restaurants to automobiles, people are speculating now the healthcare sector may get, you know, an AI boost. And this is what I was originally saying from day one. I thought, in my opinion, it was only a matter of time before the technology would spread, the list of clientele would consistently increase, and that's why I said that, in my opinion, over the longer term, SoundHound should really become a winner. But working with here, quote from NVIDIA, we're working with innovative partners like SoundHound to bring generative AI and accelerated compute into the car. But yeah, in my opinion, good news. Good news here on Sound, but I just wanted to reiterate again a couple of these trend lines that I'm personally keeping an eye on, just to show you that um, the stock could very well be selling off and pulling back, and to just point out some potential levels to watch and where the stock could go. But as you see here, D.A. Davidson went in the opposite direction that Cantor Fitzgerald did, and D.A. Davidson adjusts SoundHound AI's price target to 950 from 750, maintains buy rating. So D.A. Davidson pretty bullish on it, and Cantor Fitzgerald apparently gave it a sell rating. But we can see here also, you had a director sell 100,000 shares for about 700,000 in change, has control over almost 300,000 shares of the company. So that was a chunk. But again, if you're planning to hold the bulk of your position and you're selling off a chunk after the stock rallied several hundred percentage points, I mean, again, I really don't know if I can bash these people for this, right? And apparently this guy sold 100,000 shares and got $712,960. So that means he sold at an average price of $7.12 a share. And the stock was at, $2 and change, sub $2 for how long? And then all of a sudden, everyone starts piling in. The stock runs up to 7, 8. So he hits the sell button and he ends up getting executed, at around 7.12 on average. So again, I really don't view that as a negative, even though this is more of a chunk compared with, the CEO's holdings. In my opinion, I really wouldn't view that as a negative. But yeah, we had one upgrade, we had one downgrade. And these are old headlines from when we looked at it. So let's look at stock charts real quick and see if this is telling us anything. So here on the daily, again, the RSI was through the roof, and then you saw we had this little dip down, and then we exploded back up to 10 plus. And of course, the RSI got above that 70 benchmark there, and the stock has since been pulling back. Now you can see RSI basically middle of the road, about 50. We did stop right there at the mid-Bollinger Band on the daily, and then again today you can see we broke right now. Stock currently sitting at sub $6, which is why I'm saying for it to pull back and retest like this $4 level where it jumped to before it had that next level up explosion, in my opinion, I think that would actually be justified. But again, also in my opinion, it's healthy for a stock to go up and down, and we want these runs, of course, so that we can make money, but you also want healthy pullbacks as well. And in my opinion, I would classify it as healthy, and I know the percentage drop does seem huge just over the last couple of days, but again, it went from 2 to 10. So even pulling it back here at 6, that's why, in my opinion, you really can't get too upset. MACD was flying high here, and we can see that we recently crossed, and obviously that's helping to pull back. But look at certain things. See, this is what I mean. People will look at something like this, they'll see red, they'll instantly get upset, they'll get all negative. In my opinion, I like to look at the positives, right? Because people aren't realizing as well. Look at the last 30 days here. 30 days ago, the 50-day moving average was $2, was higher, and came down to that level on a downtrend sell-off for several months, and then essentially flattened out for about 3 months. And now in the last 30 days, the 50-day moving average literally went from 2 to above 4. So now this could potentially be viewed as your support level, right? And it just so happens to be sitting right at 408, right around that key $3.99, $4 level. So that's why I'm saying, in my opinion, I do think it sells off and pulls back to around that $4 level. It could maybe flash crash through, not crash, but flash break through that 50-day moving average, and then probably, in my opinion, will try to reclaim it and start to run back up into the 5s and the 6s potentially. But again, we technically did have a gap up here from right below that 2.5 level before all of this started. So that's why I'm saying if it breaks 1, 2, 3 of those trend lines we looked at, comes back down to 4, happens to close below the 50-day moving average, and then pulls back and meets up near the gap fill, in my opinion, you cannot really get too upset. And also, if you liked it at $7, $9 and were pumped about it, if they pull it all the way back down to low 3s or mid 2s, in my opinion, you should be very thankful. If you're bullish on this company and they pull it back that much and you wanted to add to the position, or perhaps you're upset because you missed it, you didn't see these videos, right? You didn't know about it, the stock just exploded, oh, you're such a fool. No, like we say, everything happens for a reason. So maybe you found the channel, you found this community, and now you're watching this update and you're seeing the potential sell-off that could happen. So maybe you can start to build a position, in the mid to low 4s. And then if it breaks and does the gap fill, you can add even more and go heavier and take a nice sizable position with a cost basis in the 3s moving forward. You understand what I'm saying? So that's why, unless you bought it at 10, in my opinion, you really shouldn't be too upset. And also, if you did buy it at 10, like we always say, if you liked it at 10, you should love it here at sub 6. If it pulls back to 3, you should be doing a dance, right? Because your initial buy could be viewed as at a very overinflated price. And now the stock pulls back to the $4 level, to the $3 level, right? In my opinion, I would personally view that as a massive advantage. I would not be getting emotional. But again, that's just me. But yeah, RSI middle of the road, MACD recently crossed, and in my opinion, I think around that $4 level. But look at the bottom Bollinger Band as well, the way it completely button hooked down. I told you when we have a nice big pop or a drop, our Bollinger Bands trumpet up and down, and you can see that we came down, we started to curl back upward, and the stock has stayed up. So the bottom Bollinger Band has risen up from this like $1 level. Now it's sitting here at 433 on the daily. So that's why a lot of these big moves, if they could sustain these heights for a little bit, even if it's for a week or two, you can see, you're seeing it in real time. You can see the way the moving averages and the bottom levels get lifted up. And of course, nothing is guaranteed, but you could make the argument that those are potentially now new higher support levels for the stock. Look at the RSI here on the weekly, though. This is what I mean. Some of these indicators did get pretty high. It did potentially get a little, I don't want to say out of control, but it did get a little drastic. And again, we have the RSI up here on the weekly almost hitting 90, so now we're having a big chunk down this week of over 30%, and in my opinion is justified, because I personally didn't even expect this massive run up here. I thought it would kind of calm down at like 6, 7, and then it just kept going. It was 820, then it was 970, and then 10 and a quarter. So it's not necessarily what goes up must come down, but again, going from 2 to 10, I mean, a sell-off does kind of make sense, but MACD is still flying high. But again, we've been dropping, so if we're down again next week, we're probably going to start to flatten out and potentially start to curl back to the downside. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But the RSI on the weekly down here now at about 62 1/3. So you could potentially have a little bit of a pop, maybe back up trying to get to 7. But I do have a feeling that we could potentially start to sell off and pull back even more. Let's check the pivot points here, see if we see anything. We can see second level resistance right here at 687. And we recently obviously broke down below that. And you can see next resistance level 4.5 on the dot. So that's the weekly. We'll check the daily. But that's why I'm saying a pullback sub 5 back into the 4s, in my opinion, may be justified, and it may be coming. Low 584. Pivot point here 565. 565. So yeah, that technically would be below. So we could maybe bounce off of the 565. Going into Monday. Yeah, I don't know. In my opinion, I think it breaks this trend line, and I think it might maybe try to like bounce in here, but I think I do think it eventually breaks and drops down lower. But Pivot point on the daily, Steam friend, my apologies. Pivot point on the daily here, 565. So that is now another key level to watch. But again, this right here are a bunch of trend lines that I'm personally watching, and you can see how, again, sometimes it may seem like they don't mean anything, and then other times it just works out perfectly, right? And again, I had this triangle drawn out, and all I did was extend this top trend line, and you can see that that is exactly where the stock has bounced off of and then kind of flattened out. So this is why, some people try to knock the old school trend line analysis, but hey, we got to do what works, right? And of course, no one's perfect. No one's ever going to hit 100%. But utilizing these trend lines, trying to identify patterns, switching over, checking the RSI, the MACDs, seeing how I like to look at stock charts. Again, I check my pivot points. I like to see if the stock is bouncing off the mid-Bollinger Bands. Are they holding the moving averages? Did they recently close below it? And are we going to see another break? So I know everyone's analysis is different when it comes to stocks, but in my opinion, I think we've been doing pretty well on this channel. And that's why, again, I know it does look pretty messy, and I have a million lines going. They're all different colors. It might be hard to tell what's going on, but in my opinion, I just like to I like to personally do it this way, and I just wanted to do another quick update just to point out a couple of lines and a couple of key levels that I'm personally watching. If you have anything to add, please let us know down in the comments section below. And that's pretty much it. So I'll end it there. Once again, this is Stocks by the Numbers. I want to thank you guys for stopping by. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave it down in the comments section. I'm usually very quick to reply. Thumbs up algorithm helps me get more eyes on the channel. And of course, subscribe to the channel. That is our handshake agreement. That is how you help me help you. But more importantly, moving forward, like I always say, I understand that markets are rocky and volatile and very uncertain. So I want to wish all of you success. I hope everyone makes a couple of dollars. Thanks for stopping by. Enjoy your weekend.